Hello everyone. So last month I finished working on my rebuild of Focus, and when I announced it, I got this reply from Angelo. Basically, he was telling me that Pocket is shutting down and if I should build a replacement with it. So in case you don't know, Pocket is this application to read later articles, and Mozilla bought it so a while ago, but they are shutting it down now. So this is a story that repeats far too often. For example, without going too far, my app Focus was a replacement for Wunderlist, an application that Microsoft bought and shut down. Also, many of my other applications have done the same, and even though I am not using Pocket at the moment, I was using Google Reader before, and I switched to Feedly. Feedly is not shutting down, that we know, but is following the same schema as these ones. So they could shut down tomorrow if they wanted, and we would lose all our data and access to the application. So this is why for a while now I have been working on Solid and moving all my applications to Solid. And actually this video is not too much about Solid, so if this is the first time that you hear about it, I actually recommend you that you check Angelo's channel. He has a channel called Practical Solid, and in there you will find some videos of what Solid is and how you can use it in your day-to-day. But in today's video, I'm going to take on Angelo's challenge and see how I can build a Pocket replacement using Solid. And actually I have to confess that I am kind of cheating because I already did it. When he told me that in the comments, I decided to give it a try, and it was going so well that in less than an hour I already had one version of the replacement. And I was thinking that maybe this would be a good idea of something I could share on video as well. So today we are going to build a replacement of Pocket with Solid. Also, we are going to use my framework Aerogel, which is a framework I'm working on to build Solid apps. So you will also be able to see how this is progressing so far. So let's get started. First of all, you can create an Aerogel project using this command. So let's go to the command line and let's create our reader. When you run this command, this will create a package, and you can move to that folder and you can install it. In this case, I'm going to change in my editor so that we have all the files here, and as you can see, everything comes configured out of the box for you. Something I'm going to do that you shouldn't have to do when this is released in a stable version is that I'm going to update the version of the dependencies to the next branch, because I have been making some more changes and I want to have the latest version locally here. I will also change the versions in these libraries, because these are also my libraries, and also these ones. And let's do the same for the development libraries. Okay, so once that is updated, let's install the dependencies. Okay, I mistyped that. So this may take a while the first time you do it. Since I already have most of the dependencies installed locally in other projects, for me it's probably going to be faster than for you, but it should be fine still. Okay, so this is done now, so we can now run the dev command and see what this looks like in the browser. Let's close all these tabs. Okay, so when you create your application, this is what you will see. This is the basic shell for the app, and it already comes with all the things for integrating with your Solid pod and everything. So let's go and edit this file. So basically that is the welcome component, but actually what I want to modify is the home page, which is using this component inside. So instead of showing that component, we are going to show a list of articles, right? Okay, so once we have done this, if we go back to the UI, we will see that here we have our list. Aerogel comes with many things built out of the box. For example, I already told you the integration with Solid, but also it comes with Tailwind, and in particular it comes with some of the Tailwind plugins. For example, it comes with the Prose, the typography plugin, and so you can enable it by adding the Prose class here. So that way we have a better looking list. Now let's add a new button to add a new article. And for now, this button, the only thing that it will do is basically add a new article to our array. Okay, I also converted it to a view ref so that it's reactive. So now, whenever we click this button, we will have a new article. However, you will notice that when you refresh the page, everything will be removed. This is because we are only storing the data in memory. We are not persisting it anywhere. So to do that, let's start using Aerogel models. In this case, we can make use of a CLI that comes with the framework that is going to help you to create new models and other things you can use in your apps. In this case, let's create a model, and we are going to call it article. And we want to have a couple of fields. For example, we want one title, and we want the contents of the article. So once you do that, this has created the model here for you, and now you can use it whenever you want. For example, here, instead of having a view ref, we can use the use model collection hook from Aerogel, and we can pass the article model. For now, instead of doing a push, we're just going to create a new article. So once we do that and we go here, we still create articles, but this time when you refresh the page, you will notice that the articles are still here. This seems like it hasn't changed because it refreshes so quickly, but I can guarantee you that this is working. This is storing the data. By default, it's using Sokai, so you can also read more about that in the documentation if you want. And now that we have persistence, let's see at how to create new pages. So for example, when I have these articles, if I click on one of them, I want to open a page to read the article, right? So Aerogel is mostly based in Vue. So it uses the Vue router as well, and it also comes configured out of the box. So if you want to create a new page, all you have to do is simply register a new route. In this case, we are going to call this route reader, and the URL will be this one. And let's create a new component for that. Okay, so once we have done this, we can go to the list of articles, and here let's convert this to a link. As you may have noticed, for example, I didn't have to import this button component. Aerogel also comes with many components built out of the box, and I will use this opportunity to tell you that most of them are very inspired by Vue.js. It's not complete yet, but by the time I release the framework, I expect that most of the components that you can use in CN are also available in Aerogel. So like this, you will be able to create UIs easily. Okay, so let's go back here, and as I was saying, let's create a link. And also, there are some things that are specific to Aerogel. For example, in this case, this link, we can pass it a route, a view route. In this case, we name the route reader, and the route parameters were the article. So in this case, when we pass the article, we are going to send the article URL. In this case, this URL is the URL of the solid document. It's not the URL of the article, since we still haven't created that. So we will do that. So these are links now, and when you click, you will see that you go to the new route with this. And we still haven't implemented anything, so let's say that we want to show the contents here, right? So let's go here, and in the contents, let's create some contents. This is the article body. Okay, let's do that. And if we go back to the reader, in here we can render the body. Given that it will be HTML, because we are going to take it from other websites, we can use the HTML tag in Vue. So this will be, well, actually I am jumping ahead. Wait a second. If we render the article here, we have to declare it first. Define procs, say article, and for now this is a string, right? So if we render the article in the page, as you will see, this is just the URL, but this is not what we want. What we want is the instance of the article. Something we may do, you may be thinking, is given that we have this use collection model collection helper, we could be doing this, right? if you do that, here this will be an article, everything is fully typed, and we can show the title, for example. And yeah, it's optional because this could not be working, right? So yeah, certainly this is something you can do. However, Aerogel comes with some things out of the box that make this kind of thing easier. If we go back to a routes definition, here you can use something that is specific to Aerogel that is called route bindings. You can define those using the define route bindings helper. And in here, for example, we are going to say how we want to resolve the article binding, which is this one, right? As the argument, you will get the value, which in this case is the URL, and you can use the same approach we were following here, right? So we could say articles dot find, and we use the same thing. However, here we don't have the articles array yet. Given that this is not a component, you shouldn't use the composition API functions. Instead, you can use other functions that come from Aerogel. For example, in this case, we can use the get tracked models, which is the equivalent, basically. Okay, so now this is working, and we can define this. In order to use it, though, you have to actually register it in Aerogel's configuration. So you go here, and we import it from here. Okay, this should work. Okay, so now if we do this, actually this component is going to be receiving, well, not this one, the rigger component. This component is going to be receiving an article instance, no longer a string. So by doing that, we actually remove here a bunch of code that we no longer need. Okay, so if we do this, we go back here, and as you can see, everything is working properly. But we still have yet another trick down our sleeve. If you go to the bindings resolution, you can actually send a binding not found error as well, in case something is not found in the URL. So for example, if you go here and you make up a URL, something that doesn't exist, you will get the not found page defined by Aerogel. So yeah, this is one way to implement routes in Aerogel. As you can see, it's very easy, and everything is tied together with the models in Aerogel. So everything is congruent and working together. Okay, so I think we have done basically all the basics of how to create the infrastructure and the data for this. But let's actually look at some real functionality to get some actual data from some articles, right? So let's say you go to my website and you want to read my blog. For example, this article, which explains why you want to use Solid. Okay, so let's try to import this into our application. First of all, here, instead of just having a button, we are going to make a form. Okay, so I have written this form, as you can see, I'm also using an Aerogel component so that it takes into account all of this form using some more functionality. In this case, I am not doing anything like adding validations or anything, but this is something you could do with Aerogel. Okay, so if we go here, let's fix the styles a little bit first. Okay, this looks better. If we go here and we insert the URL, you will see that it's logging it. I forgot to do the dot value. Okay, so now that we have this URL, we want to get the content in this page. If you try to do it like you normally would, like doing a fetch request, you will notice that it doesn't work, because we're going to get some coarse errors. Also, this gives me an opportunity to show that in Aerogel you get error handling by default. For example, this error that hasn't been caught by the application, you can see it in the UI, and you see here all the list of the errors that you have. So this is also something nice in Aerogel. As I was saying, if you try to fetch a website on the internet from a browser, chances are that it's not going to work because of course, right? So you have to use a proxy. I have done something like this in other applications, but to simplify now, we're just going to use a website called allorigins.win. Basically, this is a website you can use to do this thing without needing to use another proxy. Like this is a proxy, so you can use this one. So let's do that. Okay, so I have written this code to use this proxy. So if we go back here and we try to import my article, it should be working now. Let's look at the network tab. Indeed, it's requesting it. Okay, so as the demo effect goes, when I tried it was a bit slow, but it seems like now it's working. So we can check it. So yeah, as you can see, you get the content here of the website. So let's go back to our code. By the way, I had the click here and the submit, so I had to remove the click because it was getting triggered twice, okay? So here, this is actually typed as an unknown. So let's actually say what it is, which is an object with a content string inside. And as a quick note, I don't recommend doing this normally, because if you get an error or you get something different from this response, you are telling TypeScript that this is what you got, and it may not always work like that. On a real application, I would probably use something like Thought, which is a parsing library that makes sure that your TypeScript types actually match what you have at runtime. So keep that in mind. But for this example, it's fine. So we are going to type this, and another improvement is that we can actually add a loading in the UI. We can do that using also some helpers in Aerogel. Okay, and I clear the field after submission. So if we do that and we look at the contents again, let's see if this time it's faster. Okay, as you can see, we saw the loading, and indeed this time we got it more quickly. So now we have the contents of the website, but still this is not only an article. We are getting all the HTML of the website. So in order to parse this, actually I found there is a library by Mozilla called Readability. So if we look at the GitHub, you will notice that this is actually what we want. They actually use this for the reader view, so it works out for us. So let's go back to our project, and we are going to install this library. Okay, and once it's installed, we can start using it. Actually, I'm going to go off camera now for a second because I don't remember exactly how this was used, and to save you the time. Okay, so basically the idea is that you use a DOM parser, which is built in with the browser, and with this document that you have created with the result of the contents of the result, you use the Mozilla library to parse the article. And once we do this, you will see that we have a much better object to play here. So yeah, as you can see, it has taken the title correctly here, and it has the text content and even some summary in the excerpt. Okay, so let's go, and finally we can create our article here using the data we got from the website. So the title would be the article title, or unknown if it's missing, and the contents would be the article content. Okay, so let's try now with this. If we try to import our website, yeah, as you can see, it worked. Here, let's do something before we start looking into how to render this. In Aerogel, since you have the settings and everything here, you can use some of the functionality. For example, I have this purge data, which I commonly use during development. to reset all the data and get it from scratch, right? So in this case, we have removed the articles we have, and let's create a new one. Okay, so let's go back, and now finally we can see how to render the article. So if we go back to our reader view, this would be the title. Let's use the typography plugin also in Tailwind. And here we can add the HTML, which is the contents of the body, of the article, sorry. So okay, this should work, and indeed it does. Before I comment on the broken icons, something some of you may be thinking is that this is unsafe, and you would be right. In general, you shouldn't be doing this because you are injecting some HTML that could have some nefarious JavaScript. And since in this website we have access to our pod, someone here could access to your private data. Instead, you should use safe HTML. This is actually a directive in Aerogel. It's not something that comes built in with Vue, but it's something I'm sure you will find very useful. Okay, so let's go back to the article. And yeah, so some things are broken. So it's not so easy to do this working with all the websites on the internet. So I'm sure there is some things you still have to clean up, but in general it does work. Also, I noticed that the images are not working because they are relative to the current URL. So there is still some more processing you have to do to make this working better, but it's actually pretty nice. I think it works pretty well. For example, let's try to import the farewell post as well in Pocket, and I think this one looks a lot better. So yeah, as you can see, this works a lot better. So finally, now this is a very simple but working read later application. And you may be thinking, wait a second, you were telling me this is a solid application, but in no point in this video we have talked about solid or RDF or anything. Well, actually, that's the point of Aerogel, that you are able to build a solid application without having any specific knowledge about solid or RDF. And to prove my point that this is working, let's connect this to a pod. In Aerogel, actually, you have a pod built out of the box to use for development. And you can run it using the dev servpod command. When you do this, it's going to launch an instance of CSS locally. And here in our application, we try to connect to our account, and since we are in development mode, you don't even have to add the URL of the server. It already works out of the box. So now here we are in the CSS pod, and we have to create an account. So once we have our account and we go back to the app, you will notice this is synchronizing, and as if it were magic, everything is working. So if we look our pod locally, you will see here you have a solid folder, and this is actually your pod. As you can see, here we have both our articles, and if you go to the settings, you will notice this has also been registered using the type index, which is something I think all solid apps should do. However, something that is not ideal yet is that what we are using for the terms is actually the default solid ontology. This is what happens by default using Aerogel and Sokai. So instead of doing that, let's see how to improve this using a better ontology. If we go here, for example, I want to use the schema.org ontology, right? So we can say RDF context schema.org. And actually, let's go read the documentation, because I don't know all of this out of my head. So let's see, article body, this is the triple that we should use for contents. Okay, and the title, maybe that's name, right? Yeah, it's usually schema name. Okay, so now if we try to add an article again, yeah, this by default it reconnects all the time, so that's not something we want to do. Yeah, you may notice now things have disappeared. This is because now we are using schema.org. So when it tries to find schema.org articles in the pod, it will not find any. So yeah, let's create a new one. And this is synchronizing. And let's see this one, the new article. So yeah, as you can see, it has created it using the schema.org ontology, and this should be working now. I don't think the type index has been updated, so let's remove it here, and I think the next time we synchronize, it will register it again using the proper ontology. Maybe we have to reload first. Okay, so now after doing some cleanup of the browser, everything is working properly. We have here our schema.org articles, and they are registered in the type index as well using the proper ontology. So yeah, basically that's it. That's mostly everything I wanted to show for today. I hope you find it interesting, and when I release Aerogel, you play with it. You can already use it now if you want, but it's not ready for production yet. But feel free to ask me anything you want, and I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you.